For most of Western history, morality has been understood in a particular way. We see ourselves as rational beings. We assume that when we make moral decisions, we weigh reasons and then we choose what is right. That picture largely goes back to Plato. Plato imagined the soul as divided. There is reason, which seeks truth, and there are our emotions and desires, like anger, ambition, craving, fear. For Plato, a just person is one in which reason rules. Emotions aren't evil, but they are unstable. If left unchecked, they pull us in different directions. So the good life, he thought, requires discipline. Reason must guide emotion. And that idea still feels intuitive today. When someone acts impulsively, we say they weren't thinking clearly. We equate morality with rational control. But modern neuroscience complicates that picture. Back in the 90s, a neuroscientist, Anthony Damasio, studied patients with damage to a specific part of the brain called the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. What he found was striking. The intelligence of the patients was intact. Their memory was intact. They could solve logical problems. They could explain moral rules and social norms. But in real life, they struggled profoundly. They had difficulty making decisions. They couldn't prioritize effectively. They would deliberate endlessly over small choices. And as a result, they made choices that damaged their relationships or careers. It wasn't that they had lost the ability to reason. What they had lost was much of their emotional response. Damasio claimed and proved that emotions aren't the enemy of reason. They're part of how it works. Emotions help us feel what matters. They help us sense what is important, what is risky, what is worth pursuing. Without those feelings, reasoning doesn't stop, but it loses direction. It becomes slow, uncertain, and almost paralyzed. And that challenges the old idea that we think best when emotion is removed. Let me try to explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine you're playing Minecraft. You find a pig and you get on it. The pig is your emotions, your anger, fear, comparison, desire. You are sitting on top. Now, in Minecraft, there's a way to guide a pig. You can use a carrot on a stick. You hold it out in front and the pig follows it. That's basically Plato's idea. Reason is the carrot. If you understand what is good, if you see clearly what is true and just, your emotions will follow. You steer your life by holding up rational insight. But in real life, this is not happening. In real life, the pig doesn't follow the carrots. In real life, you are sitting on the pig and it goes wherever it wants. It turns left, it runs into a wall, it wanders into the forest. And instead of steering it, you throw carrots in the direction it already went. Then you turn to the other players and you say, "See, it follows the carrots. I guided it exactly there." Maybe that's closer to how our minds actually work. Emotion moves first, then reason steps in and explains. We feel anger, then we construct arguments. We feel disgust, then we justify it. We feel loyalty, then we defend it. It feels like steering, but maybe it's narration. If that research is true, then it changes how we think about morality. It means we are not purely rational agents directing our passions. Instead, we are emotional beings whose reasoning often works after the fact. But this doesn't mean we are powerless. Even if you can't instantly control a pig, you can change the environment the pig is inhabiting. If you constantly expose yourself to outrage, outrage becomes natural. If you constantly rehearse resentment, resentment becomes automatic. If you repeatedly practice patience, compassion, honesty, those begin to feel natural too. You may not control every movement in the moment, but over time you shape what your emotions learn to value. Maybe Plato was wrong about how control works. Maybe reason doesn't rule like a king, but it can reflect, it can observe patterns, it can decide what environments to enter, it can decide what habits to build. And over time, the pig adapts to the world you've placed it in. So perhaps wisdom is not about suppressing emotion, and it's not about pretending we are perfectly rational. Maybe wisdom begins with humility, with recognizing that we are not as in control as we think. If my emotions are powerful, what kind of environment am I building around them? What am I surrounding myself with? What am I repeatedly exposing myself to? Because whatever emotional world you live in, that's the world your emotions will adapt to. And over time, that becomes the direction your life takes.